Hey guys, I'm Koko. Today I wanted to share with you a couple of beginner tips for Phoenix Point that I wish I knew before I started. As always with these kinds of videos, there might be potential spoilers, so if you're trying to avoid those, this might be the time to stop watching. But now, without further ado, let's begin. It's important to learn that in Phoenix Point, you should always aim down sights. Always. It's way different than XCOM in that. You can aim and you can disable certain spots on the enemy that you potentially want disabled. Like over here, the arm has been disabled, so he can't carry his shield anymore and defend against us. So if you can't kill him, why not use that? Just make sure always click on an enemy, click on info, and learn what he can do. This one does not have a shield anymore because we disabled his arm, but he still has a pincer, so he could attack us. But if he comes close, we should be able to overwatch him and destroy him without him being able to use his shield. This way you also learn where they have the most armor, so which place is the best to shoot at. So if he doesn't have any armor on his arm, it's going to be easy to deal 50 points of damage to him rather than hitting for the torso, which might be a bigger target, but it definitely does have more armor, so it would take more damage away from our shots. If you can't kill an enemy, then you should make sure that they can't kill you. Some of the enemies will be using two-handed weapons, like guns or something like that. And if you disable one of their hands, in this case this guy isn't actually using, but he's using a pincer and he's using a shield. So if we disabled one of his hands, he wouldn't be able to use either of these things, but he could still use his other thing. Now if you can't kill one and they have a two-handed weapon, try aiming for their arm. If you disable one of their arms, they won't be able to use a two-handed weapon at all, and they will be practically useless. Of course, some enemies might still have an additional pistol or something like that, but often they won't be able to do anything against you. In Phoenix Point, with how many points you have in your movement, you are actually able to pop out of cover for a clear shot, shoot at an enemy, and then go back into cover, hiding from them.
Here we go.
That is the easiest way to deal with some of the enemies, and it's way different than in XCOM. So if you were playing XCOM before, that's something you'd have to remember and relearn, because you have 4 movement points, and you can spend them in any way you want. You can move, shoot, and move again. You can shoot and then move. You can shoot twice with certain people and then still move. So play with that, try to get that into your head. You know, it's way different than in XCOM, and there's a lot of things you can experiment with and try out, and that way it's going to be easier for you to deal with any enemies possible. Hiding behind solid walls might provide you with good cover. Just remember, it is also destructible, but those same solid walls might also hinder you if you try to set up an overwatch. So over here, if you set overwatch over here, he might have issues shooting across that, or if you set overwatch like this way, he might have issues shooting around here. So there's also something else you can do with overwatch. If you press Control and then zoom with the mouse button, you can make this as big as possible or as tiny as possible. So basically what you should do is anticipate where enemy movement could be coming from, and then put a tiny overwatch like that over there. So with this guy who is also using a pistol, I wouldn't really want him to be shooting at anything that might come in this huge radius. We want him shooting maybe just at this side over here, or maybe just down here. So basically anticipate where the overwatch might be the best useful and scale it accordingly. Just hold Control and then use the middle mouse button to scroll up and down. If you have additional space in your inventory, you should always consider bringing extra weapons. This is a melee based unit, but you can see he can't really get over here towards this Arthron and deal damage with his primary weapon. So since we do have a pistol, he can at least be useful like that. He can switch to his pistol and then try shooting. Of course, with his pistol he can't really do much over here because this guy is protected by a shield and he's not very accurate, but this can be very useful on certain enemies. especially if they disable one of your hands, and if you disable one of your arms and your character is primarily a two-handed weapon character, they won't be able to use that. But if you have an extra pistol, they can still use a pistol in the one of the two hands that have not been disabled. One of the most important things on the strategic map is to always build, research, manufacture, and scan. Always have a new building popping up in one of your bases. Always have something researching. There should always be something that you can do. Every time you have new research, just put it in the queue so you don't forget. You can then switch it up around if you want to. Manufacture new weapons and new armor, because you never know when you get a new recruit that doesn't have anything and you might want to equip them. Manufacturing might not be as important later on as you get more stuff just from missions, but early on I think it's pretty important, as long as you do have the materials required for it. And also always scan. You see the green circle around here. If we just on pause, you can see this thing turning out here, and it's scanning for new sites. You can always only scan with one of these. I believe this is based on satellite uplink. Yeah, scan one area scan for aircraft. So always have one of these scanning. When it's done scanning, go scan something new, so you can always find something out there. As you fly around exploring, be very mindful that there can be ambush happening on the map. So if you have any injured soldiers in there, or any very exhausted soldiers, those might start that mission, that ambush, injured or with less AP. So it's always a good idea to go into your base and build a couple of medical base, and where in the place where you have medical base and your soldiers are going to be just healing up, it's really good idea to also have training facilities. Basically, these training facilities will give you 2 experience points per hour for each training facility in the base. So if you build multiple, it's gonna keep on stacking. Of course, if you have multiple medical base, they will also heal faster. You can see 4 hit points per hour for each medical facility in the base. So it's a good idea to have one base that's going to be just focusing on healing and training, because you can always just leave people behind at the base if there's nothing else to do for them. One of the most important researches you should do early on is research called Haven Recruitment Protocols. This will basically allow you to recruit soldiers, new soldiers, from havens that you uncover. And that's another reason why it's very important that you uncover all the factions as soon as possible. Now, if you see a little tiny dude standing next to the icon, that means there is a soldier you can recruit over there. And some of these can also be special class that is only available from that certain faction. Like this guy over here is, I believe, a berserker kind of guy. And over here we saw there's just a normal assault that you can recruit. Of course, there's also special events that might give you new personnel, but basically this is how you get recruits. You should build an APC pretty fast, basically as soon as possible. They are going to be very strong for your early missions that you might otherwise struggle with. They're very tanky, they can carry other soldiers, and they have grenade abilities that can launch pretty much across half of the map. And they can also drive through walls and uncover possibly hidden enemies. You should also consider getting a new flying thingy. So instead of building a manticore, how about stealing one? Now, you will not always be friendly with everybody. In fact, it's almost impossible to be friendly with everybody. So at some point you will be at war with one of the factions or two. So consider going to steal an aircraft. This is going to give you a special mission, but if you do it, it's going to be a special aircraft that belongs to that special faction, and it's going to be a huge boost for you. Food is the only resource that you can produce yourself. If you build food production buildings, you can get a lot of it. Basically, some of it will be used by your soldiers. If you don't have enough, it's going to be going into malice and you're going to be losing it all the time. But if you produce enough, then you can trade it at other havens for other resources. Like over here, you can trade it for tech and materials. But to actually do that, you need to complete a research that you can get pretty early on. It's called Haven Trade Protocols. And that, when research, it's going to allow you to trade with different havens. And as you can see, different havens offer different stuff. Of course, you can get all the resources if you do scavenging missions, but sometimes you might be lacking a certain resource, and you would just want to go out there and get it. Or here you can see you can trade tech for materials or food for materials. Of course, it's not the same trade, but it should help you. This concludes the tips I had prepared for you today. If you have any tips of your own you'd like to share with the community, please feel free to post them in the comments below, or join my Discord channel to chat about games and gaming. But for now, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.